Hey friends, today I am making what is probably going to be the hardest thing I have ever made. Not in a pattern way, the pattern's pretty simple, but in a leather way. This particular leather that you're seeing at the moment is I think it's a 2mm thick Italian shoulder, beautiful to work with, and this one's absolutely fine. What's coming up challenged me greatly and I think damaged my knife quite a lot. I've never worked with it before. It has never been something that I've shown in a video before, and I have always wanted to work with something like it, so today I'm going to. At the moment, the pattern I'm working with is pretty simple. I've never made a knife sheath like this before. It's a sort of Japanese style pancake sheath, not a fold over sheath. And that's all because the knife is Japanese Damascus, I think they call it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful knife. I bought it recently. So I thought that warranted a really nice sheath. This knife I'm using at the moment to cut the leather is by far the best knife on the planet. It puts the Le Dispensable, I think it's pronounced, the French very popular leather crafting knife to shame. It is just a razor, and all you have to do to bring the edge back after a day of work is simply touching it with a strop. It's kind of ridiculous, but this leather that you can see me drawing the pattern on is brutal. It is the hardest leather on the planet by far. It's basically armor at this stage. It's barely leather. In fact, it's fish, so I don't know if you can class it as a leather, but it is leather. It's Stingray. It's gold Stingray, the hardest leather in the world. And I thought that it would be a fun challenge to make the hardest knife sheath ever, which I think it probably is. It's basically stab proof at this point. As you're going to be seeing in a minute, stitching through it was no easy feat. It really wasn't. I had to sharpen my awl twice whilst I was working with this. I purposefully prick marked, just barely touching the leather when I was going through the Stingray, and that is purely because I didn't want to damage my KS blade punch prick marks as well as the knife I was using to cut the stuff. So in a moment when you see me punching the holes to keep the inlay in place, I'm barely touching it. I'm doing most of the work with my awl. That awl is fantastic, by the way. I can't remember. I think it's Jerome David, maybe. But you can get it from Rocky Mountain. If you want some more information about it, just let me know in the comment section below. So at the moment, I'm only clipping that in place because I'm not actually attaching it at this point. That's going to be the part that goes between the two layers. Can't remember the name of it. But that keeps the knife from cutting the threads. So I'm only clipping it in place because I want to take it back off, because that's not actually where it goes. This panel that I've just glued is actually the outside panel, and I've only used it as a template in order to actually put the Stingray in roughly the right place. It doesn't need to be perfect at this stage because obviously I'm covering the edges with the inlay part, the overlay maybe. But I'm enjoying working with it. It's a challenge. I wish I had it in silver or black, but I don't. I've got it in gold. I never actually do this in videos. I always ask at the end or at the beginning, but I would absolutely love a subscription from you guys. 80% of the people watching don't subscribe, and that 80% out of how many thousands of people who have watched my channel, I think it's 450,000 views I've got, would just explode my channel. So it doesn't cost you anything, completely free to do, and it would mean the absolute world to me. I'm currently working on a Patreon, and my website's going live next week. I'm going to be giving some more information on that in the next video, or in the next couple of videos. But if you like what I do, if you enjoy the content that I'm putting out, please do subscribe. It's not automatic, it doesn't cost you anything, and it helps the algorithm know that people are enjoying my content, which I think a lot of you are. So hit that subscribe button. Don't worry about the bell, not so important, but it would be useful, and I would be so appreciative. I'm now going to mark those dangerously hard holes, and I am a bit nervous about it. So I'm barely going to touch it. As you can see, I'm hammering through it, but not through the Stingray. I'm only hammering at this point through the Italian shoulder, just because I don't want to damage the really expensive KS blade punches that I'm using. These ones I think do go through it, but I'm not sure actually. But they're not being damaged. I checked afterwards. The other thing I was concerned about actually when I was planning this was the actual stitching. I didn't know if the very hard pearls, they're called pearls, on the Stingray would actually cut through the thread. I wasn't actually sure. I'm glad it didn't, but I put some extra wax on just to help it go through. But I was actually really quite concerned that not punching it, going through it would be okay, because I'd be able to sharpen my very hard awl. But the thread, I wasn't certain if it would get frayed or if it would get cut, because those pearls, like, they damage steel. It's absolutely outrageous how hard they are. Imagine trying to cut through one of those Stingrays in the wild. Good lord. As you can see by the back of that, the stitches were not exactly in line, and that is simply because I was having to maneuver around the pearls. So it looks from the back like I'm having some sort of stroke. I'm not. I'm just trying to get around the pearls themselves. That little white thread that you can see sticking out is actually tiger thread. I never use it for stitching anymore. That is so that I have a solid backing for when I put it in the awl. It just gives it some rigidity. Now what you're not seeing is the hour and a half, literally an hour and a half, I spent sanding this. It's why I put I think it was 10 mil, a full centimeter around the blade, so that I could spend that full hour and not sand through to the blade, because I'm not painting the outside. I rarely do this, but I'm actually going to burnish the outside, and that's because Italian shoulder burnishes beautifully. So I was going to film more punching through that, but my camera turned off and I wasn't totally aware of it. But I'm actually going to burnish the outside, and you'll see in a minute the result I get from it. I don't think it's been a hell of a result. It's actually called a mirror finish. But there we are. I've done a full. That's only half of the sanding, by the way. I do more sanding afterwards. I just wanted to stitch it, so I made sure that I'd be able to have enough leather outside of the stitch line. I spend another, I don't know, 45 minutes sanding it after this point. You only see a fraction of it because I didn't think you'd want to sit through that period of time of literally just sitting there sanding, it was boring even for me, and imagine trying to watch it. But at this point I've done that, I've sanded it, and now we're going to burnish it. I'm going to use Tolkanol first, and that's going to start closing those fibers because it's got a bit of a gluing effect. So I'm going to burnish that Tolkanol. But then after I've burnished that, the pad that's on that block, you can just about see it. I think it's a purpley pad. It's a 6000 grit. It's so fine. I think it's used for jewelry making actually primarily, and metal work. So this is Columbus wax. It's built for shoemaking, to polish the leather soles of bespoke shoes. It's made in Japan. It's a Japanese wax. And then I'm going to use my filetous, my flat S0.5 at a level 5 setting if you want to do this yourself. And I'm melting that wax into the fibers, which is why I use it quite hot. You don't want to use a canvas rag to do this part. You want to use a really soft cotton, this is part of a t-shirt, to actually bring that wax up to a shine. But thank you guys so much for watching. I am super appreciative that you've got this far in the video, and let me know if you want to learn more about that mirror polish. I'm more than happy to do a video about it. But don't forget to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see next. I'm not a mind reader. I need to know what you guys want to see, but I've got some interesting stuff planned, so let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day. See you next time.